There's a pretty common fan theory circling around the internet recently. Our Invincible is one of the few or only marks to be good because the other good marks don't survive the battle with Omni-Man. While I mostly agree with this theory, I'm going to take it one step further. I think the show gives us a lot more hints to the real reason Mark is good: family. It's Debbie's parenting, the family dynamic, and the way parenthood is portrayed through the show that makes Mark who he is. Family structure plays a big role in how the household runs in the first place. Invincible Season 1 starts with a fairly nuclear family: a mom, a dad, and one child. As the show continues, it leads to a single mom with one child, and soon after that we get what I find to be one of the more interesting family structures: a mother with an adopted newborn and an adult child. In Season 1, Nolan seems to want/expect a traditional or neo-traditional household structure, where the wife is focused on just mothering her child, while the husband is primarily focused on working for an income. In the case of the show, it seems like Nolan's published books are enough passive income to live comfortably on and own a nice home, since he seems to just hero full time, and we don't hear much about him working on any new books. In this scene, where Debbie, who is admittedly hiding something else, complains about work stuff, Nolan suggests that she just stop working and doesn't seem to understand she might want to work. I think her reaction makes me think she wants a more egalitarian household structure, because she wants to work and feel like an equal parent, trying to live up to her husband, who's the Earth's best superhero. For now. Even in Season 2, after Nolan is out of the picture, and Debbie is now a single parent for 2 children, she continues to work and wants to, so she doesn't have to rely on Nolan's book sales or help from the government through the GDA. We don't get to see much about how chores and other housework is distributed in the house, aside from cooking. From what we can see, Debbie is responsible for the cooking and all of the meals, aside from one line where Nolan jokes about grilling up part of an alien tentacle, and one time where Mark offers to cook for Debbie instead. Debbie even refers to the kitchen as hers. There's a big gendered component in parenting and cooking, where the societal expectation is typically that the mother does the cooking. An interesting way this is seen was found in a 2008 study looking at how families celebrate Mother's versus Father's Day, where mothers were more likely to be relieved of cooking duty on Mother's Day, since that is a part of her intrinsic gendered identity. There seems to be this idea in society that children are not yet people. They are property to be molded into what you want them to be. Nolan embodies this idea perfectly in the early parts of the show, especially in one of the best scenes in the show.
You want to die for this planet? Fine! What's 17 more years? I can always start again. Make another kid.
I think Nolan has his early good dad moments, where he teaches Mark to fly and the early parts of being a hero, but he also tends to get carried away and has moments exhibiting toxic masculinity. For example, in Season 1, when teaching Mark to land, he just tells him, just land, instead of taking the time to explain and going a bit too far when he punches him. The show explains a lot of this off by the generational trauma passed on to him by the Viltrumite Empire. Nolan thinks that this is the only way to live and raise his child, because that's how he was raised. He needs to be tough on Mark, because he needed to be tough in order to survive his own childhood. In the context of the show, this is mostly true, since Mark does need to survive multiple Viltrumite fights later in the show, but it leads Nolan away from the other option, that he could fight against Viltrum and protect his family as it is. This often comes at the cost of denying Mark's humanity, and insisting that he is a Viltrumite over and over again. He erases Debbie's contribution into raising him as a human. In a way that feels very reminiscent of eugenics, saying that his Viltrumite half is so pure that he's basically pure-blooded. But he isn't just a one-dimensional character. He has his moments where he does question if what he's doing is right. After his fight with Mark in the finale of Season 1, he is genuinely distressed. I think this all started with the baseball scene. We get to see a moment of young Mark playing baseball. Nolan doesn't understand why it's important to be there. He doesn't see the importance of parenting or the joy in being human. It's through Debbie talking to him that he gets it, that they become a family to him. Nolan leaving Earth had a big impact on Debbie's story in Season 2, but one thing I think would have been interesting to get more details on was how it financially impacted her. She went from having a household of 2 incomes with an adult child to being a single parent of 2 children, one of whom requires highly specialized childcare. Calarco talks a lot about how impactful an income is on a mother's ability to care for her children, where only 7% of stay at home moms have a household income of $100,000 or more. It's not unlikely that Debbie falls into that 7% with a job in real estate, but having such a major change in family structure and income would be hard for anyone to navigate. We hear right from the beginning that Debbie did most of the parenting, something far too common today. Moms are the one responsible for raising the children, teaching them about empathy, all while taking care of the home and earning an income. This is often referred to as the supermom myth. Funnily enough, in this situation, she is the only one in her household without powers. Yet she has to live up to being a super mom. I'm not here to critique Debbie's parenting, which is something that happens far too often outside fiction in the US, especially to Asian American mothers, who tend to be policed about their parenting more heavily than white mothers. Inside the show, I don't think Debbie is immune to this external policing of her motherhood. It's seen best in her relationship with Cecil in relation to Oliver. Cecil doesn't really know how to take no for an answer and isn't known to do something without sneaking in his own little bit of safety. So when he finds out Debbie is parenting another half Viltrumite, who is currently an infant, he offers again and again to help take care of Oliver. When this doesn't work, he sends his own people in to apply for the nanny position Debbie looks for Oliver. This is a pretty direct parallel to the government surveillance and intervention that happens far too often to parents in the US today, not even mentioning how Cecil keeps tabs on the Grayson family with literal surveillance throughout the entire show. Angstrom says that not all Debbies choose to be good. A lot join Mark and Nolan. If I went through such intense government surveillance, lived in a society that made me as a mother feel like I had to live up to impossible standards, and then my husband of decades asked me to join him and make society better with our son, yeah, I might join him. It's a testament to Debbie's strength that she doesn't. Despite being married to the Earth's strongest hero, she still stands up to him. Oliver is an interesting change to the family dynamic in Season 2. He's the half-brother of Mark, an adopted child of Debbie, and the son of Nolan, though Nolan is not able to parent him due to incarceration, and Oliver's mother is presumed dead in the show's canon. This leads to an interesting parallel to the adoption and foster care system today. One thing I think was particularly interesting was, as I mentioned in the section about Debbie, she's heavily surveyed by the government and the quality of her parenting of an adopted child, something very common today, especially of mothers of marginalized identities. Debbie has no responsibility to parent Oliver, yet chooses to anyway, due to the connection with her ex-husband and Mark. This would be referred to as kinship care, a growing form of adoption and foster care where the child is placed with someone who is otherwise biologically related or is close to the family in some way. This has been shown to have a lot better outcomes for the child, and I think in the context of the show, where the alternative would be either him being cared for by the GDA or Mark struggling to finish school, parent, and be a hero, both aren't great options. Another thing I noticed was that Oliver remained unnamed on Thraxa. Since they live such short lifespans, it was tradition for them to allow children to choose their own name upon being old enough to decide for themselves, something that Debbie simply ignores and instead chooses a name for him more similar to Earth traditions. Having adopted or fostered children be forcibly assimilated into their parents' culture is another thing far too common in the US, especially with Native and Indigenous children. Oliver has an interesting perspective on his father, Nolan. He has memories right from his birth, so he only knows Nolan how he is after Season 1. A very changed person from who he was before. This leads to Oliver not seeing him in the same light that Debbie and Mark do. So who teaches Oliver humanity? I don't think the answer here is directly from Debbie or Nolan. Debbie does do a lot for Oliver, don't get me wrong, but she also doesn't do much to understand his Thrax inside and makes him to adapt to her norms, like making him not fly in the house. I think it's through Mark being a brotherly role model for Oliver that he learns humanity, another thing dependent on Mark being good and surviving each attack. So why did Mark survive? In the Season 1 finale fight with Omni-Man, Mark either becomes evil and joins his father in one way or another, resulting in the evil Invincibles, or he chooses to be good and defy his father. In most universes, it seems like he doesn't survive this. It's because of Debbie's parenting that allows both Mark to choose to protect humanity and her relationship with Nolan that shows him the value of lesser creatures. Because of Nolan's fathering, Mark is a strong enough hero to survive all of the battles as Invincible. We know this because of Oliver. The same choices that lead Mark to surviving the battle with Omni-Man lead Nolan to father Oliver, something Angstrom Levy has not seen before, despite many alternative worlds he's visited. Ultimately, Invincible is who he is because of his parents. To be both a human with autonomy and a Viltrumite hero, he had to be